Hearty shalom to all of you. Jeffrey Seif here, and I am super pleased to take you into the Bible. I use the Tree of Life version of the scriptures. Been a theology ministry professor for 30 years, and I'm so glad to have this tool in my hands. I'm glad that you're taking a second to go to and through the Bible with me. I'm glad you just want to do it with anyone. We're working our way through the Torah portions as per the schedule that our Jewish friends use, and we're in Parashat Vayigash. It's a fascinating story in 44, 45, 46, and on a little. There's this is gripping. Cecil B. DeMille said, listen, give me 2 pages of the Bible. I can give you an epic motion picture. I say this here because this moment in the text is filled with drama. If you're following along in Genesis, Jacob has had 12 sons, one of whom was sold into slavery in Egypt. Fortuitously, providentially, he rose, however, and became a regent in the land, so powerful that he had command over Pharaoh's assets. And with troubles in the economy round about, with famine and the like, individuals were forced into Egypt to buy grain, and he was the man in charge. His brothers were forced in. Of course, they didn't recognize him. The brothers threw Joey under the bus. The reason why I think this is such a parable for our times is we experience a lot of dysfunction in families today for various reasons, and we point the finger. Some of us are the victims of it, others are the perpetrators, and sometimes it's some combination of the two. These things can get rather complex, and people can be left rather perplexed. For whatever reason, family members can be estranged. Well, this is the quintessential dysfunctional family, and Joey and his brothers, Joseph and his brothers were estranged, to put it mildly. This is the moment, however, when we're looking at a God-ordained reconciliation. Those of us that are sideways with kin and significant people in our relationship networks, we look for these reconciling moments. If you would, please, look with me in chapter 45, and I just want to work my way through a few of these verses and waddle through it. It's very dramatic, and there might be a word in here for you, and for me for that matter, something fresh I hadn't thought of before I turned on this my phone to record this. In chapter 45, verse 1, now Joseph could no longer restrain himself in front of all those who were standing by him. So he cried out, "Get everyone away from me." Joseph is there with his brothers, and this emotion is welling up. He's looking at them, and he knows who they are, and they're looking at him, but they don't know who he is. It's completely unexpected. He's got this Egyptian haircut and accent now, and it's all changed, and they're clueless. But he's living with this tension, Joseph, for some time, and his mind is to really reconnect with his brothers. We'll see here that he's not angry with them. If he was, I could understand it. I'd probably be if I was. And my Hebrew name is Yosef. I'm named after this guy. You'd think I'd imitate him a little more, but boy, I don't know how I'd put to rest being betrayed by my family that way. But it seems that with man, these things can be impossible, but God, they are possible. Joseph put it to rest. He really did. In any case, he wants to reach out and reconnect with them. Well, we're told as we read on, so no one stood with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. He wanted to do this as something of a private moment. We're told in verse 2, he gave his voice to weeping so that the Egyptians heard and Pharaoh's household heard. So he put everybody out, but everyone could sense there really is something here. The pent-up emotion, probably uncharacteristic, but how often are you staring down your brothers who really did you dirty? And I'd be ambivalent. Ambivalence is when you're simultaneously attracted to someone or something and repulsed from someone or something at the very same time. I mean, at this very moment, he wants to reach out, but is there anger there? Well, you've heard me to say that he's put that to rest. And the reason why I say he's put it to rest is because he said he's put it to rest. And how did he do that? And how can we conceivably put some of ours to rest? We're told in verse 3, Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. If I could have been a fly on the wall to see their faces, I am Joseph, I would imagine all the jaws dropped. Why wouldn't they? Completely unexpected. This Joseph's been haranguing them a little bit, and but then he says, I'm your brother. Wow, I mean, that is just so powerful. And then he asks a question. Is my father still alive? Wow. He wants to know. He wants to reconnect with the family. This is the time for it. And he's looking to reach out. He can't bear not reaching out anymore. He sees a God-orchestrated moment. And this is what we look for when we find ourselves fractured. And we live in a world today, for a lot of reasons, people find themselves fractured. Broken relationships are just everywhere. And we seek the Lord for that, to fix that. It's been many years for Joseph. I don't know what his prayer life has been in that regard. He certainly knew as a youngster that his father particularly was kindly disposed toward him, and he would have understood that his brothers snatched him away because of jealousy associated with all that. That's rather clear in the text in previous reading. Where's Dad? How's Dad? Tell me. Can you imagine the longing? And his brothers were unable to answer him because they were terrified at his presence. And why wouldn't they be? You know, these brothers knew they were guilty as a $3 bill, that they had done dirty. I mean, really dirty. You know, it's amazing what people are capable of doing. I'm not trying to get too political here, but in a previous generation in wars, you look at what Germans, good people, political climate, rhetoric, what people are capable of doing. The Japanese, good people, the wrong political climate, the rhetoric, how people get ramped up. Look at what they're capable of doing. When I think of my estranged Arab cousins, very hospitable by nature. You get the wrong political climate, you get it ramped up. Look at what people are capable of doing. I mean, it's just astounding. Well, brothers, to think that brothers would betray their father and a brother to the point of giving him up for dead and selling him into slavery. I mean, but that's off the charts. And these are the Hebrews, the chosen people, if you will. Of course, they're terrified at Joseph's presence. At his presence. They don't know what they're going to get. And, you know, is Joey going to drop the hammer on them? Because Joseph has all the power. I mean, these guys are just roadkill on the highway of life right now. They can get run over by this freight train called their bigger brother with all the power. He's not minded to do that. I think it's important to develop an aptitude to be forgiving. And he was, as we'll see this in the text. And Joseph could be forgiving because he realized God's hand was in his affairs. If his brothers wouldn't have done what they did, Joseph wouldn't have been where he was to walk out the life that God had given him to live. It was part of the plan. Betrayal is part of the plan. I mean, it sounds odd to say it, but really, I mean, here's Joseph betrayed by his brothers, But he didn't hate his brothers because he realized it was God's plan for them to do that. I mean, you can fast forward the tape to Yeshua, to Jesus, who was betrayed by his brothers. Not all, of course. When you look in the New Testament, not all the Jewish people were thumbs down on Jesus, but enough of the religious elite were that they were able to push this thing through with the net result that Yeshua was crucified. So certainly Yeshua, when you read through even a casual telling of the text, he was rejected. But he wasn't just rejected by Jewish people. The first followers of Jesus were Jewish people. People always accentuate the rejection motif and ignore the fact that they were all Jews subsequent to his death, burial, and resurrection, that were part of the tribe of believers. Well, he wasn't universally rejected, but he was rejected by these significant people that had power. But Jesus understood that it was God's plan. The Bible says it was the will of the Lord to bruise him. He has put him to grief. When individuals come to terms with that, it's easier to swallow the rejection pill. Joseph, in verse 4, said to his brothers, "Please come near me." So they came near. "I'm Joseph, your brother, the one you sold to Egypt. So now don't be grieved and don't be angry in your own eyes that you sold me here, since it was for preserving life that God sent me here before you." Again, he acknowledges God even in the pain. When we can put our faith in God and not thus carry